Today on Thunderbear 4-wheel drive, we're going to make Anderson jumper cables. Ha ha! So you might be asking yourself, why aren't we just going to the parts store and buying a set of jumper cables off the shelves and throwing them in the rig and calling it a day? Well, there's a few things to this. So first of all, I've already built a set of these many moons ago, like 25 years ago, something like that. And one of our members saw that I had the set and they thought that they were really cool. They wanted to have their own set. So that's why we're building these, and we're going to take the opportunity to film it for you. So we're going to talk about some of the benefits of having the Anderson style jumper cables. We're going to talk about the wire gauge that we're using and explain our rationale behind why we picked it. We're going to show you all the parts that we're going to be putting together here. We're going to show you all the tools that are going to be required to do this. And then we're going to build them and show you what it takes to put a set of these suckers together. So why would you want to use these Anderson SB style connectors in the first place? Here's some information we got from Anderson Power Products website, the people who invented the Anderson SB connector. And we found that they were originally invented in 1953. There was multiple versions of the product from 1953 through the 60s and into the 70s, which is where we have the version that we're familiar with today. The SB connector was the result of a request from industrial forklift manufacturers who wanted a safer way to charge their electric forklifts. This connector went on to charge things from forklifts to man lifts to wheelchairs to golf carts. For all intents and purposes, the SB connector ended up replacing all of the spring-loaded pin and socket type connectors that were used previously. Another really cool benefit of this type of cable is you can attach your clamp end to the vehicle that needs to be jumped, and then you connect your SB connector on the vehicle that's supplying the additional voltage. When you make that connection, it's not directly at the battery, so there is less of a chance that you're going to generate a spark that could potentially ignite the hydrogen gas that comes off of a battery. Also, on the connector end itself, once it's connected, even when it's not connected, the contacts aren't exposed so that they can be accidentally arced. They're protected at all times. So those are some safety measures as to why you would want to use this style of jumper cable. Because it eliminates the clamps on at least one half of the connection, you're guaranteed at least 175 amp engineered connection on that side. Clamps, no matter what they're rated at or how good they really are, you're always at the mercy of the resistance of the battery terminal, possible corrosion. There's a number of factors which will always put into question the end that you put the clamps on. So at least you know half of the solution is been taken care of with the connector. Then all you have to worry about is the clamps on the one side and making sure that you get a good solid connection with that. Another really awesome benefit to this is it allows you to plug in other high amperage load devices, such as a winch. So you could make a set of these cables that's long enough to reach from the front of your Jeep all the way to the back. And if you have a winch that goes into a receiver hitch, you can power that winch through that cable setup. This is the selfish reason for doing this. You can't really loan them out to anyone. It's not like someone runs up and says, "Hey, can I borrow your jumper cables real quick?" And you can go, "Sorry, nope." So you never really have to worry about someone not returning them. Because you need the connector on the one side, they're pointless to hand to anyone. They can't jumpstart their vehicle without clamps on both ends because they don't have the same connector that you have. So let me kind of clear up and help educate, if you will, the proper use of jumper cables. Most people are going, "What's this jackwagon going to tell me? I've been using jumper cables since I was a teenager. I know how to use jumper cables." Well, you probably do, but not everybody does. So this is for the people that might not have a full understanding of how this is supposed to work. So the proper way to jumpstart a vehicle is as follows. You take the positive clamp and you connect it to the positive terminal on the dead battery. You take the negative clamp, the black one, and you can connect it to one of three places. You can go directly to some place on the block that has good bare metal. You can sometimes connect to an accessory drive on the dead vehicle. Those are usually aluminum and they've got a lot of surface area, so you can get a good solid clamp on it there. Or you can connect it directly to the negative terminal on the dead battery. Then you're going to take and go to the other side and you're going to plug in your SB connector. You're going to let it charge for anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes to make sure that you've got enough flow going to the other battery to give it enough of a surface charge that you can crank on it for a little bit. Because if it's having a hard time starting, there might be other factors involved. If the starting system's already run the battery down because it doesn't want to start, you know, there's like a gajillion factors you kind of have to look into. So just let it charge for a little bit. It's not going to be the end of the world. Take 5, 10, 15 minutes and let that dead battery recover a little bit, and then go ahead and try to start the vehicle. If you try and it's trying and it's not quite there yet, stop, wait for another 5 to 10 minutes, let it charge some more, and then usually you can hop in, get it to turn over, and away you go. Now that you're done, you're going to go back, you're going to disconnect your SB connector, then you're going to go remove your clamps off the dead vehicle, call your stuff up, put it in your rig, say hi to Bob, wish him good luck, and on down the road he goes, and you can go do your thing. So if some of you have already taken and looked down in the description, you might have seen that we're using 4-gauge wire, and you're thinking to yourself, what on earth are you doing? That is not nearly enough jumper cable. Those wires aren't nearly big enough. We have to have big jumper cables. Oh, ho, ho. 1 0-gauge. Oh, cable, cable, cable. More power. No, the 4-gauge wire will work just fine. I have a battery charger with a 200 amp start cycle on it, and the wires that go on my actual battery charger are 6-gauge wires. 4-gauge wires are ample. If you're trying to jump a semi immediately without trying to help charge the system and help it recover any, well, you're going to get a big flow and you might need big wires. You also need clamps that somehow fuse to everything when you connect them. Well, that's not really a realistic expectation. Remember, the whole point is to assist the battery being jumped, not provide 100% of the power. So if you like what you've seen so far, please don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and smash that like button. It really helps us out in the algorithm. Now, let's talk about the parts that we're going to be putting together here. So we got our 4-gauge cable right here. So there's black cable and some red cable. These are the Anderson connectors. And I don't know if you can see this or not. It says 175 amp right there. Okay. And these are 4-gauge lugs for these connectors. And then we got some 4-gauge, I think these are 5/16, yeah, 4-gauge by 5/16, and this is for your terminal end for bolting to your battery. And we could possibly use them on the clamps because the clamps have this kind of a connector, so we could use these in here instead if we wanted to. These are your clamps. These are in the Eagle Beak style. I prefer these. They tend to have more force. The way the springs are done in these, they're a little more aggressive. I've used these forever. 500 amp, so they say. But like I talked about earlier, it's gonna really depend on how clean the terminals are that you're going to, because you're gonna get resistance on all these connections. So the clamps, you just have to cross your fingers, you're gonna get a good connection. But you can, hit them with a wire brush or whatever. Just make sure that they've got as much tooth contact as possible. So there's that. These are actually handles for the deals so that you can get a hold of these. So one of these will get mounted in the vehicle, and then one of them goes on the cable. And then if you've got the handle on here, you can, connect it, disconnect it a lot easier. And they come with these pretty cool little covers for the connectors. So all these parts, here's our shrink tubing with the adhesive on the inside so that it'll be nice and gooey. And so all of this stuff will be in the description in the parts list. The tools that you're gonna need. So this is old school. This is how I used to crimp these. you would take one of these connectors, you put your cable in it, you'd put it in here and take a hammer and shablamo and mash that sucker down. Well, lots of dangerous stuff. So now I have crimper. So much more controlled. These will do from 2 gauge down to, I'm sorry, this will do from 6 gauge to 0 1 gauge wire. So this will also be in the description. These are not in the description. I've had these suckers for like 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, a long time. Also, not in the description, I've had this for like a gajillion years. This is my heat gun. So, and we've talked about this in other videos. I like using a heat gun instead of open flame because no need for fires. So, much safer. And these aren't that expensive. I think you can pick these up for like 40 bucks on Amazon, 35 bucks. I'll try and find one and put it in the description. How's that? We actually got a cordless one of these, a DeWalt one, and it was a little more expensive, but you can even get them like that. So now it's time to get started on cutting up stuff and getting it all put together. So Ricky, who's running the camera for me, got me some measurements so we know how long we're going to cut our cables. So you need to know how long a lead is going to be from the battery to where your connector is going to be. And so he took some measurements on his Jeep. And then once he gives me that measurement, we'll cut these back and whack them off. Oh, another tool I forgot to talk about. Also, not in the description, this is a cable Skive. This is a Blue Point one, so this sucker's old. But what it does is you can adjust how far this blade tip sticks out there, right there, by adjusting that. And then you put it around, you go around it, then you turn this and it turns the blade. You slide up and then you can unfold it, take it off. These are so nice. Really, you should go get a set. So yeah, he's gonna give me some measurements and then we'll lay these out and we'll get them cut. Okay, so after much commiseration, we decided we're gonna cut these 24 inches long. So that'll be enough to go from our battery to where they're gonna mount under the hood. So this is a 24-inch level, and right here. So cable cutters. These are not like side cutters. These are cable cutters. They're much more oomph. So when you go to Skive these, you're going to want to take your lug, and you're going to want to kind of figure out about how far back to cut that, because obviously this is a lot shorter than this one, so you can see the difference here. So we'll be skiving these at different lengths just so that they match the lug that they're going on. So there's a pretty cable. So also on this tool right here, you can see there's a sharp edge right there. So once you make your cut, you can take and hook it in here, use that to strip it off. All right, so because these are so long, we're gonna crimp them in 2 spots. We're gonna do out closer to the end and then up a little bit further. And you always wanna kind of do your outside one first, because then it gives it a chance to really hold on to the wire. Okay, so we re-rigged this up because that's a lot of pressure. And we got 1 bite into it. And this is our 2nd bite. So it is not the most pretty crimp, but you can see it's crimped here and here. So we've got 2 parts of space. And these are like super thick walled. So You look at this compared to that, and we ended up jumping up to the 0 gauge to do this because the outer thickness, outer diameter of this was so hefty that is not letting go. So we got the one end, now we're gonna skive the bottom end and take care of it. So you can't see it on the camera, but on the tops of these, they're marked for 4 gauge, and you just spin these around in the deal so the collets line up. And there we go. So got a good bite on there. So now we're going to take some of the shrink tubing here and make happiness. So when you heat these, you're going to want to stay on them long enough that the adhesive on the inside melts, and you'll see it kind of protrude out of the end a little bit. As the shrink tube gets tighter and the adhesive starts to melt, it should push out a little bit. And being that this is going on the battery side, we're going to want to make sure that we get plenty on here so that it covers the space and gets it really good, because we don't want any corrosion getting into our jumper cables. So there's our first quarter of the whole thing is now done. So you take these, they're marked positive and negative, okay? And then if you look at here, there's a little abrupt hook on one side. You look down inside here, there's a little catch. So you're going to take and you're going to make sure that your catch is going to catch on it the right way. Going on the positive side. And now it's in. So it just doesn't take much to get that lip caught, but you got to get it up in there far enough. All right, we're going to start on the black cable here. Adjust these back out to 1. And you can see that we're using the vise to do this. This tool works. These handles are not nearly long enough for this particular connector. It's just the thickness of it. It's a brute. So, and I'm sure that some of you are thinking, well, why aren't you soldering these? This isn't exactly difficult. Soldering is kind of a nightmare. Go watch someone else do it in a video, and you watch them burn the insulation back and make a big mess, and they get it hot and they plunge the copper in and it's too cold, then they got to heat it up again. And no, we're going to crimp these because, yeah. This is the vehicle side. So Ricky's going to go home. He's going to mount this to his battery. He's going to mount this where he wants to in the Jeep. We got a picture that we're going to add in here, and so you guys have an idea that so his battery's going to be over here, and then his cable's going to run up the firewall a little ways, and however he wants to mount it, he can mount it. He can lay it in there. Don't have to worry about anything because these aren't going to touch or contact anything. They're safe. And they've got this fabulous little cover here. There we go. Ta-da! Beautimous. So we're halfway done. All right, we got the pigtail done, so on to the actual cables themselves. And because we have learned the buddy system is best for these lugs, Ricky's gonna come help me. Towards the bottom there?
Yep.
You're carefully not standing on it. Or, oh, let's go 90. There you go, right there. top. All right, so let's take these down one notch. Redo that. All right. Not gonna lie, I'm a big boy, and this is not easy. Drop it down to 2. So we're double crimping these. We went a size higher, and now we're dropping them down. The barrel size on these lugs is pretty extreme, so I just want to make sure we are not hurting ourselves down the road. A heavy toolbox and it's moving. There we go. This adhesive in here has a particular smell. It's not harsh, it's not unpleasant, but you learn what that smell is, and when you start to smell it, then you know it's oozing out of the shrink tubing a little bit. Kind of a good indicator. One of those mechanic things. So now we're going to take and get this stuck in here for our cable side. And that is the sound it is supposed to make. This is the first one that went like it was supposed to. The others worked, I mean they're connected, but this has a very distinct click sound. So that was very, very satisfying. We're gonna let this one cool off a little bit. I think that might have been what was holding us up earlier. So now down to the other end. So after looking at our clamps, they have a screw here that holds them in. So we are going to actually crimp these not with that. I'm going to dig through my toolbox. I'm going to find another tool for this. So what I'm going to try to use to do these are, so if you look at this, you see it's an open face. There's a 2-part. This part right here is supposed to contact the conductor itself. This part right here is supposed to go up and then turn and stab back into the insulation on the wire. If some of you might recognize what this looks like. Looks like the end of a spark plug wire. So, spark plug wire crimpers. So we're going to see if we can't use these to duplicate that. If you look at the crimper, it's got that tip in there that'll turn these tangs and force them back down to bite in. So we're going to see if we can't do this with a pair of spark plug crimpers. Using a combination of 3 sets of pliers here to accomplish something. So some of you about 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, I don't even know how long this video is going to be in the end, but a lot of you tapped out, just went to the parts store and bought a regular set of jumper cables. You're not cool. Those of you that have stuck around, you're pretty awesome. That's the bottom side. There's the top side. These did turn down in, and I got them to stab into the actual conductor, and then on the outside here, I got at least one of them to stab into the insulation. So it's holding on pretty good. Now, for those of you that had concerns about the gauge of the wire, keep in mind that this tiny little piece of copper is going to be held to this clamp with this tiny little screw. That's it. That is what's transferring power from the end of the battery all the way down here to this clamp. So, you know, just putting things in perspective. So here's another little part that we're going to do. It's an added strain relief. See this part of the spring? It's got a hook on it. We're going to take and we're going to pull that up over to the side. We're going to drop the cable down in the handle and we're going to use that to hold the cable down into place. It's a little tricky. So take a look there. Now the spring is holding the cable in place, so it puts all the pressure on the cable right there and not right here where the screw is. So we've got contact, we've got strain relief, life is good. And it's even on the shrink tubing, so it's holding on. That mastic is drying right now, that adhesive is drying underneath the weight of that, so I think we're going to be good. I'm just going to tighten that screw just a tiny little bit. El finito. So one more end like this to do. I think our red end is cooled off enough now that we can install it. It's good and firm. Haha, that clicky clicky sound. Good stuff. So we just went out and measured these against my Ram, my Rebel, and these reach from where my battery is all the way past the tailgate. So you could pull up behind my pickup and jump start it on the road. Safety glasses, folks. They're actually Crizal. These are things that are like rated. I drove over these glasses and I didn't break the lenses. These aren't those lenses. They had little stars in them, but they didn't shatter. I mean, so Jeep glasses, they are plier proof. Well, Mr. Gutierrez, you have yourself a pair of Anderson jumper cables. You should be all right. All right, so I turned the tables on Ricky here, and he's going to put his handle on because I was a slacker and forgot to do that. And so he busted out the hardware kit. He's doing her up. So now he's got a handle he can hold on to it with and clip them together and all that good stuff. So Schnurgen, cool stuff. All right, so he's gonna plug it and unplug it for you. You like that, sir?
Yes, I do.
Very, very cool.
Perfect.
So now there's two of us.
Right.
What we need to do is we need to build a set of cables with Andersons on both ends.
Yeah.
You know, so we can jump start each other if we have to. Or if you have like, you need to double down on a winch. So like one guy's winching and then you're gonna like use a second rig to charge the battery. That would be pretty bomb.
That would be pretty sweet.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. So cool. Want to thank everybody for watching this video. It's our longest one yet, so super proud of it. Hopefully you guys think we're doing a good job. If you've made it this far, I'm going to think that maybe you do. So go ahead and subscribe, smash the like button, turn on notifications, and I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a couple videos over here you guys might be interested in. So go check those out. You guys have a great day. We'll catch you in the next video.